What's going on, everybody? We're back. Welcome back to another episode of Just Talking Ball. Coming off our bye week because both of our teams had a bye week, so we're well rested, and I think those bye weeks end up working out for us. So it's good to see everybody, and of course, I got my boy Eric Foster in the building with me. What's going on, E?
Oh, another day in the top.
Yeah, true that, and I'll smile while I agree because it was a good weekend. So we're gonna go right into it, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. November is full swing, football, a lot of implications. Things are gonna start becoming real rather than projected or what could be. Teams are gonna start seeing these point of no returns. Records are gonna start mathematically saying you're out, you're not bowl eligible, you are bowl eligible, there's a possibility for a conference championship, and so on. So let's see what we got for the show today. So we're going to talk about this trashy fans culture, man. Just fans getting so comfortable, and it's become, I don't want to even say it's becoming the norm, but fans throwing trash and bottles on the field because they're mad or not pleased with the outcome of calls or plays or whatever, or even officiating. I guess the second college football playoff ranking came out just a couple of days ago. So we'll get into that. Obviously, we're always mad about some. Maybe we're not mad this week. We'll see when we get there. We'll recap Kansas, Iowa State, and preview BYU. We'll recap that Texas massacre of Florida and Arkansas preview. And we usually have chalk talk. We won't have that this week, but then we'll get into our predictions and the games that we're looking for this week. So going right into it, talking about trashy fans culture, just being so. I mean, this is not Gladiator. This is not back in the Coliseum where you could just do whatever you want to and throw things on the field. I mean, there were times back in the day or other sports where fans are mad just because their team is winless and it continues or what have you. But now it just depends on certain games, and if it's a big game, these college football fans, man, are now throwing trash, water bottles at, not necessarily at people, but on the field to show the displeasure, and they're holding up the game. That sometimes the home team is going to be penalized, and I give you a hard time about it because it first started this year in the Texas-Georgia game.
It did not. It did not.
It was not. Who was the first team?
Tennessee in 2002 was the
I
first.
Said this team. Year. I said this year.
Well,
I said this year.
Facts. Well, but I'll take it because
I appreciate the fight though.
Because what starts here changes the world. I get it. I understand. I'll take it. You gotta take the good with the bad, baby.
That's what's up. And I like to throw that jab, but and I say that Texas not being the only school though. Most recently, I know with LSU Alabama game, I don't know if LSU was just feeling helpless, because they couldn't stop Milroe. So they said, well, let's just throw some stuff, maybe a trip over, roll ankle or something. But I mean, they threw trash on the field. Not pleased with a call, but more seriously, Utah BYU game, which was a great game. But there was a moment where I really thought Utah was gonna, give BYU their first loss, and I think there was a holding call, or they were backed up against their own end zone, what have you. It bailed BYU out. They were backed up in the holding call or something bailed them out, and the fans threw water bottles, and and consequently somebody threw a water bottle and hit a BYU cheer sponsor, a cheer coach, right in the face. I'm going to show you that later on, but I mean, it was just, smack dab in the face. And what did she do? I mean, like I said, there's no call for that. I mean, do you have an opinion about that? I understand passion, I understand fire, but I mean, it's just you gotta act a certain way when you're out in public, and you can't let the fact that my favorite team got screwed, so I got mad, and that was the reason. We don't live in those times. What do you think about that, E?
So I'll come at it from a couple of different angles. One, the way you get it out of the game is automatic penalty for the home crowd for the home team.
Agreed.
Where it's an automatic unsportsmanlike 15-yard penalty, but I do think there are some levels where maybe it even rises to the level where it's so egregious that it starts to be multiple penalties, right? And when you start to get multiple, I don't know what the number is, but I know if you get so many unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, the head coach gets ejected, right? And that's a way to get it out. Obviously, you're going to continue to fine the schools, but in this era of big time money, especially at the P4 level, those fines typically are inconsequential.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think both things can be true at the same time. Where Texas the way that the officials handled this similar situation in Austin set a bad precedent, and probably has quote unquote encouraged this kind of behavior across college football. On one hand, the other hand is other schools are going to have to realize the hard way they're not Texas, and you don't get those same breaks. You
Yeah.
just don't. That's
Yeah.
life.
And you know, I'll never ride the Texas train, but I will give them credit for how they handled it. I mean, they addressed it right away, got, you know, suspended those students that they could identify, you know, as quickly as they could. And
I think I
that,
read the number had got up to like 96 students,
yeah, and
96 people
yeah,
that
and
are
you
banned
know,
from all Texas athletic events
and we
for
talked
the
about it
remainder of
a
the
couple
year.
shows ago. And you're like, man, it's September. You know, this is just the beginning of the year.
It's the beginning of the year. So
Yeah,
those fans, and there's a
yeah,
lot of cross-pollination between sports. So
mhm,
those fans, those
yeah,
same fans that had season tickets to football, because right next on either side of the kids are season ticket holder sections.
mhm,
So, for the ones that weren't kids, and even the kids, they can buy what's called a big ticket, which is all access to all the sports. So now, not only did they not get to go to the remaining two home football games, no home basketball games, no home baseball games, none of the home volleyball games, none of the home softball games. So we'll see some of those other sports. It could end up having a material impact
yeah,
because some of those football is the only one that's got
yeah.
105,000. Everywhere else, you start noticing
Mhm.
20, 30, 50, 100 people
No
missing.
doubt, no doubt. That's a good
It
point. That's a
impacts
great
the
point.
experience in the game. So, but once schools get hip to that, and you make the punishment severe enough, you can get it out of the game. You can get out of the game real easy, to be honest with you.
No, you're right. And like I say, you know, these kids need to understand, man, there's a consequence for your actions. This is not, I just felt and I was in the moment. Nah, nah, this is real life. And you know, I think, like I said, I give
And I
you a hard
also
time.
think it's important, and I think this the annoying part of this for me specifically is not only do you see this, it's almost like people are abusing it, right? Because in the Texas scenario, right before that play, there was a super egregious a super egregious call
Uh-huh.
that Texas had gotten a 15-yard penalty and a first down when they would have potentially gotten the ball back.
Mhm.
Georgia. Then you flash forward to now they actually get the ball back,
Uh-huh.
and then you
Yeah.
call another. So
And
like it was
and that play in that time, that was so impactful, boy. The way
so
that game,
impactful,
yeah, the way
so
that game
impactful.
was going and the way it happened,
And
yeah.
it was and the call was wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
Not that allows or excuse,
yeah.
but I do think it's important when the call is wrong. I've seen now multiple instances of fans throwing stuff on the field when it was the right call.
Exactly. And that's my
Like, and
point too.
that's the part of
Yeah,
it that I'm like,
yeah,
okay, we'll
yeah.
take the rap, but that's a little
Yeah. No,
crazy
you're right,
to
and I
say.
agree. That is a good point, and
These
that's why I'm
if you're going to be outrageous, try to be smart.
yeah, and that's why I'm
You
making the
know,
point about LSU. Like Milrow, I mean, when he rushed for 184 yards, I think, and you just couldn't stop him. So yeah, I guess I would throw something at him too. But you know, that's just, and I think there's no place for. There's already enough things against these kids. You got people in the stands talking about them, and just don't throw it. Don't. You know, that's trash. But yeah, we're
but
not gonna.
also another last part of
Uh,
it, and I think another way to get this out of the game is if you look at all levels of this thing, everyone involved in a big time college football game is held accountable with the exception of the officials.
oh yeah, well you talked about, yeah, you
ADs are
mentioned that.
held
Yeah,
accountable because
yeah.
they've got to stand up for whatever the program does. Head coaches, players, they all got to go stand in front of the media and answer the tough
Are
questions.
you alluding to, yeah, you thinking officials, or at least the head ref should have to
Officials should be
hold
hired
a
as
press
employees.
conference?
First
Yeah.
of all, they
Mhm.
should be hired as full-time employees. They pay them enough. Most of these officials don't have other jobs, and if they do, they're super flexible jobs. But you hire these officials
Mhm.
as full-time employees. You pay them accordingly, and they are held to account. There
Yeah.
needs to be a system by which they are objectively measured, and because oftentimes officials do get punished, and I don't know that a
Yeah.
lot of people know this. We know a lot of officials, so we
Mhm.
know kind of what happens behind the scenes. But officials do actually get punished and get reprimanded, but it all stays secret.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows it but the officials and within their particular conferences or within their chapters, or
Yeah.
they don't get rewarded with conference championship games or bowl
Mm-hmm.
games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of their penalty. But no, they need to be publicly named, because when things are kind of in this crowdsourced environment, a lot of other things come to light. I'll give you an example. Fans are crazy. A lot of fans have too much time on their hands. A lot of there's a particular Big 12 official, Asian man. His name escapes me, head referee, but there's literally a full blown Reddit page dedicated to him and his
Jesus.
crew and all the statistics around, and
That,
it
yes, that is
bears
too
out,
much time. Yeah, that's too
but
much
it
time.
bears out that this is not a good crew.
Mm.
And I'm saying all that to say, once these things become public, and
Mm-hmm.
the sanitation of sunlight, when these things are public, I think you can get a result that everyone can appreciate, and ultimately people stop feeling cheated. And I think that's where this ends up, where people don't look at officials because of how things are so secret and how things are handled. People don't look at officials as people who make
You're
mistakes.
right. You're right.
They say,
And
oh,
that's
they
the problem.
cheated.
Yeah.
They say
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
cheated.
Yeah.
Not they made a mistake, they cheat.
Because when, and that's across the board. Anything is like when you're in charge of something or you have rule over something. Now the human element of you goes out the window, and you cannot make a mistake. And if you do make a mistake, I want your whole life. I want your whole job. You know, so, I mean, that's just that. I mean, that's everywhere, and there's different things. But yeah, but
The
but
one
yeah,
place that has it figured out, I don't know how it is in other high school sports, but high school basketball has it figured out, right? In the state of Texas, at least. If an official, so let's say official makes a mistake, coaches get technical fouls. Coach gets a second technical foul, they get ejected.
Mhm.
Not only does the official have to report that to UIL, the head coach can then call for a hearing. UIL, then they go and stand before UIL, both the coach and the referee, and whatever supporting evidence the
Yeah.
coaches have comes out. So I say that to say, since they changed this rule, I don't know that I've seen a coach get ejected since. I think there was once,
Yeah.
and well deserved, well deserved. But it's saying that to say, when folks know that they're going to be held to account for their behavior, it gets checked at the door.
No doubt.
And
No doubt.
so I'd like to see that.
And yeah, you like to see adults and people just act like they got some sense sometimes. But like I say, people will do what you allow them to do. People, whatever they can get away with, they'll continue to do it. And that's just that. But we're moving on. So we're in the college football playoff ranking, switch up very early, when the 12 team playoff. And you and I talked off camera the other day, like why they even have a show about this, because it's gonna change, and that's it. I know ESPN needs something to fill time. So I mean, just quickly, so like on the ticker down there, there's an AP poll. There's numerous polls, but now there's also now a college football top 25, and I'm gonna go into detail more about what that means in a minute. But as of right now, if you could see, there are a few maybe different differences in like the AP and the CFP top 25. So right now that's what we have, week 12 rankings going into it. Now, if the season was to end today, this is how the seating would be as far as who's in and who's not. And the biggest outrage that I know I've heard at least, is the whole Georgia deal. And it then in turn, I know they have what, one loss, two loss,
Two losses.
two losses, but in turn, then the hate went towards Texas, Penn State, Indiana, and it was someone else. And I actually saved it here, and you know I don't like talking about people, but a lot of times I know he's done it for a long time. I know he's well respected. I know he has his own show, but Paul Feinbaum, it's just a lot of times it's hard for me to take what he says, because he looks like one of my old history teachers from high school rather than a college football expert. But nevertheless, that's I don't want So the tweet about Georgia being potentially left out was led by number 3 Texas has 0 ranked wins, number 4 Penn State has 0 ranked wins, number 5 Indiana has 0 ranked wins, number 6 or possibly number 6 Notre Dame lost to now 5-4 Northern Illinois. And then they go on to say that number 12 Georgia has a 15-point win over number 3 Texas, a 28-point neutral site win over Clemson, who has maybe one loss, I think. So that's the discrepancy. And I say all that to say, in agreement with you, that it's still early. This doesn't matter. This is not what the bracket is going to be when it's the final bracket. I don't know if this is just things they want to influence the people that's on the committee to say, hey, you need to correct some things, or I don't know. What do you think about, like, the obviously this is a projection, but like as it sits now, like I like the fact there's more teams that's got a chance, but what do you say? And I kind of alluded to this about the SEC, beating themselves up, and it being just such a good league, but somebody's gonna get cheated. And I think you agreed, like, yeah, somebody's always gonna feel like they're getting left out. But what do you think about these seedings as it would sit if the season ended today?
So a couple of different things. I think college football has an opportunity to, once you move to this larger pool bracketing model like college basketball, you have to move some other aspects of this to kind of basketball as well. So I think there's a world where you get away from ranked wins and you start looking at, in college basketball, things are separated in quadrants, right? Quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4, and where those teams fit in the overall landscape of college football. So by that metric, a quad 1 win is the best quality of win that you can have, and that's kind of where it stops. So Texas would have two quad 1 wins. The win at Michigan is a quad 1 win. The win at Vanderbilt is a quad 1 win.
Really?
Yeah. Because they would be in the top 4th of all of the college football Power 4 teams.
Very good. Okay.
And that's kind of how you have to do it, because week to week, okay, today Texas doesn't have any ranked wins, but Michigan was ranked 10th at the time they played them. Vanderbilt was ranked at the time they played them. Oklahoma was ranked at the time that they played them. And it's not like the SEC didn't try to give Texas a difficult schedule. Right? You have Georgia on the schedule. You have Oklahoma on the schedule. You have Florida, who's in year 4 of their head coach. You have Texas. You have a Kentucky team who's won 10 games 3 out of the last 4 seasons. You have a Texas A&M team that was allegedly on the rise, right? Right now, 7-2. So it's not like this schedule was always set up to be bad. And because that's the thing. The bad thing about college football is these schedules are made years in advance.
And that's the thing. You can only play who's on the schedule.
I can only play who's in front of me.
Yeah.
I believe if things shake out how I believe they will shake out, Texas will have beaten Arkansas on the road, beaten Kentucky, beaten a Kentucky team, beaten an A&M team on the road, potentially have won an SEC title against, really, you're looking at it'll either be
Alabama,
LSU, Tennessee, or Georgia. Alabama's going to be pretty far down the line because a couple of teams have tiebreaks on them.
Yeah, see, and that's what kills me. And just the thinking the way Alabama looked against LSU, like, ugh, yeah, go ahead, but yeah, go ahead.
So Texas will have had a win against probably 2 teams, because I think at the end of the year Texas A&M should still be in the top 15 because they have literally the easiest remaining schedule in the country, save for the Texas game. So you're looking at a top 15 Texas A&M win, and then potentially whomever they face in Atlanta being another top 10 probably win, top 10, top 15 win. And it's going to be kind of hard just to say that. I think if we're going to have legitimate gripes, because when you look at this, things as they are today, the only thing that probably won't move, because every team up here can't win out. Oregon and Ohio State and Indiana can't win out because they play one another. Let's assume Ohio State wins that game. Ohio State and Oregon can't win out because they play each other again in the Big Ten game. The only team that you probably have a legitimate gripe of, if they're too high and it's a gripe because it matters, is Penn State, because Penn State is projected to win out.
Wow.
So right now at the 6th seed, they really probably wouldn't drop
I know.
And if they do, it wouldn't be any lower than 8th, probably. So they're still looking at hosting.
Yeah, I say that you took it right out of my mouth. They're sitting in the sweet spot,
They're
having a
sitting in
home
a sweet spot.
first round home game. Yeah,
They're still looking at hosting, and without having to play a conference championship game, without having. So you look at that, and they're the only thing that could really hurt them is, and I still don't see it, right? Even if, let's say, Ohio State wins out, so Indiana comes out of the mix, Georgia's back in the mix. Georgia potentially, Georgia would be in. Georgia still controls their playoff fate because they play Tennessee. So if they beat Tennessee, the number 7 team in the country, they're back in this hunt, right? Because Tennessee has to fall out. Tennessee would have to fall behind Georgia. So I think, you can have a gripe of, if you want to, right? I think Indiana, one could have a gripe about potentially because, and this is only recent, right? Because of the Michigan game, does Indiana still pass the eye test? Do they still look like one of the top 5 teams in the country after the way they've struggled against Michigan? Probably not, but that'll resolve itself because when Ohio State comes into town, can't lose. What happens?
Exactly.
Right?
No, you're right.
And I think we'll see, because if they compete with Ohio State, okay, yeah, they probably are a top 5 team. If they win, they're certainly a top 2 team in the country. And if they get boat raced, they don't belong. And we'll see that. Like, all of those things we'll see. So this is where I don't, it looks like it now because there's so much.
Exactly. It's
there's
early.
so much of this movie left to be played out. But I think I'm just reassured that once this movie finishes playing out, everyone will have an opportunity to be where they're supposed to be.
And that's the thing, they'll have the opportunity, like you say, and and like I say, it's early, so you're gonna have your chance, and like you say, with the 12th spot being the next conference champion or highest ranked conference champion, I mean, it speaks to opportunity. But I mean, golly, obviously it is no surprise that the SEC as of right now is represented well in this bracket, followed by
the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten has.
I would say the Big Ten too. So tell me, if we're just talking, and I'm gonna end it on this, because I know you're not big on them, is Miami worthy of a first round bye? Because of the rule, I guess.
Because of the rule. Because I'm not a fan of taking away their P5 status. I don't think Miami. I think the gripe gets bigger because I don't think it's Miami in that spot. Just like I don't think it's going to be BYU in that spot. So we have an opportunity for 2 teams that aren't even on this.
I'm reading your mind. You're saying Colorado and Clemson.
So for 2 teams that aren't even on this graphic right now, right? There's an opportunity for 2 teams that are not even on this graphic right now. To be to end up in this. Now, then you've got real, and this is what I think the committee is for, because then what do you do with BYU? Right? What do you do with them?
Rules are rules.
Let's assume they lose. Okay, right? Let's assume they lose. What do you do with them?
They lose and they drop. So now
let's say they lose to Colorado in the conference championship game.
Okay, so they'll be probably 11-1, whatever, 12-1, 11-1. Okay, so you're not ranked at.
What do you do with them? Because you've got to put Colorado in that spot.
If they're going into, I don't know. So I was gonna say so.
So is BYU better than Georgia?
Based off the rule, they're seated. They're seated. They're seated. They're seated higher.
The mandate for the committee, and we just dealt with this last year. So if people don't choose to acknowledge this, they're going to set themselves up to be just like last year and be pissed off all over again. The committee's mandate is to get the 12 best teams. Then caveat, the exception is the rules, the buys, right? So get the 12 best teams, then account for the rules. So you get the 12 best teams. I'm assuming BYU's not there.
I was about to say it's so hard to project so far ahead. So if BYU they're continuing to win, they'll be undefeated, and their first loss will be in the contract. Which things like Alabama, Georgia have always faced these type of pitfalls in the past. But
But
like,
think about the
what?
win. Think
I,
about the win behind their sales
but
because
I think the
who's
question is how
BYU's
far do
best
they
win?
drop?
But who's BYU's best win?
I know, but how far do they drop? That's that. I think that's
BYU,
the next question.
BYU. So but to really not be surprised and to get the accurate result, we have to acknowledge that a couple of these teams are only here because of the rules. BYU, I do not believe, is one of the 12 best teams in the country. Indiana, I do not believe, is one of the 12 best teams in the country. Miami has probably the most credible case of the bunch, and I still don't think they'll end up being there in the end. So,
and I guess BYU biggest victory is they beat the hell out of K-State earlier in the year, and K-State was ranked. So I mean,
are they ranked today?
Who, Kansas State?
Mm-hmm.
They are like 20 something.
Okay. So there's a chance they're unranked.
Yeah.
So same measure applies, right? No ranked wins. No. So again, it's the eye test. It's all going to depend.
They're 16, but I digress. They're 16.
So it's all going to depend on if they lose and how bad they look when they lose. Because I do believe Indiana's only going to lose to Ohio State, but I think they're going to get their ass kicked, and then it becomes. Ooh, well, the Big Ten, they got lucky. Yeah. They can't control their schedule. They played who they played,
and some people benefit off that, and that's just the way the chips fall. So you're not gonna have an answer for everything. Sometimes they're gonna benefit from the way, or like you say, like kind of how Penn State's trying to stay below the radar. You know what I'm saying? It's the same deal because
and they will now because all they got to do. I literally think because they don't got to play Indiana, Oregon, or I think they got to. I don't even think they have to play Michigan. I think they just had Ohio State, and that's it.
Are we talking about let's see. So Penn State remaining schedule is that's hilarious. You're right. Minnesota and Maryland.
That's it.
And
those games are going to be squeakers.
Yeah.
Those games won't even be blowouts. They won't. They're going to win those games probably by 2 touchdowns.
Ugly.
And they'll be, well, is it ugly? Because if you jump out to 2 touchdown
but lead, I mean,
and you lead that the whole game, it ain't a blowout, but it wasn't close.
But
it doesn't feel gross.
But versus a 4-win team and a 5-win team, I don't know.
So I'm excited because ultimately, here's what I love about the playoffs. Is the odds of if we look at probably that 3 spot is probably the best spot, but even still, for Indiana to win a national championship, for example, they would have had to have beat Alabama with things as they are today.
Mm-hmm.
They will have had to beat Alabama, beat Texas, beat Ole Miss.
You say it right there. They deserve it. They deserve it.
Oregon or Ohio State.
Yeah.
In 4 straight weeks. Yeah. All these games now are back to back to back. There's no buys in here. So they would have had to beat 4 teams in 4 weeks. Even if that happened, we would not get to the end of this and say Indiana wasn't the best team in college football. Because at that point, I'd say bullshit. Look at who they beat.
Yeah, and it's funny, and like you just got to, man, it's so many things. But Indiana, so they're open this week. Ohio State has Purdue, I think, and then next week Indiana, Ohio State, and Columbus. Like you got 2 weeks to prepare. I mean, really do some things, throw some wrinkles in there. And
I think your Signetti is good, but here's the thing, and me and you talk about this probably more than I talk about this than anybody. Is football for me is a game of haves and have-nots.
Yeah, I mean,
and when we get to a level, there are levels of an upset, quote unquote upset. Mm-hmm. Vanderbilt over Alabama, that's an upset because Vanderbilt ain't got. But
I threw some at you like, them other ones ain't upsets.
They're not because if I'm looking at a roster and regardless of how it happens, right? Whether mine is made up of freshmen or yours are made up of seniors, that probably can make the difference. But if we're both dealing with a team and Georgia probably is a different. Texas is probably different. Alabama's probably different because all those teams, they probably got, 15 Sunday guys on their roster.
Yeah.
Right. But other than that, everyone else probably got one team will have 5, one team will have 7. And, because of where they are in the rankings, we'll say, oh, that was a big upset. No, not really. NIU over Notre Dame, that's an upset. They don't have not one.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame probably got 6. That's an upset. So I just think in this world that we're headed towards with college football, I think the right people will end up where they're supposed to. Because if we think about how we think about professional football, how many times has a team, regardless, I'm even thinking about the Giants, right? That went from wild card all the way through. The Ravens, the year they went wild card all the way through. Even when the teams on the lower end of the spectrum, and you can apply the same rule to basketball. The teams that were 6 or 8 seeded and went on to win, when you get to the end, you just don't say, the better team didn't win. No, they did. They did.
Yeah, that's real.
And that's the difference between now and BCS era, right?
Yeah. The computer percentage and all that.
And even the 4-team era, right? Because when you look at that 5th team left out last year was a Georgia, right? A 1-loss Georgia that lost in the conference championship game. They opening the door for BYU to be a 1-loss conference champion. They don't get in, right? When you look at those things, then you have a legitimate gripe. But if Georgia were to get left out this year, they got 3 losses.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in your comment. I'm just not interested.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. No, I agree. I don't care. That's the schedule was the schedule. It wasn't like, So
3 losses is crazy. 3 losses and saying you had a shot is crazy. I just don't care. I don't care. I don't care.
You're right. And it's early, and I won't get you worked up too soon because, like I said, we got about 4 more weeks of this. So moving on.
Oh, we in cruise control now, baby.
Oh, I know.
We just got to get. I'm a little worried about College State. I'll talk about them. I have some slight nervousness about Saturday. Not that we'll lose, just that we'll play bad.
We'll get to it. Well, that could segue into what are you mad about? We went so hard on the college football. I don't know, man. I'm you know what? What are you mad about? What are you mad about?
I'm mad because I feel like at some point, and probably a couple more wins and it's there, but the disrespect for Deion Sanders that followed after what I thought, and I said, I yelled it from the rooftops last year, was built off of way too much hype, because they expected Colorado to be Indiana this year with versus a tougher schedule.
Yeah. Yes.
And that was never going to happen. Just like Indiana, if they had to play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon, we probably wouldn't even be talking about Indiana right now.
Exactly.
So I feel like eventually the apology is going to have to be as loud as the disrespect was.
100%. 100%.
And at a point you just got to give him his flowers. And I think, and I'm pre getting angry, but you're probably looking at Kurt Signetti, if not Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning probably gets it if Oregon goes undefeated. But if Oregon were to lose a game, you're probably looking at Kurt Signetti as the National Coach of the Year. When
I think
Deion has done a better job today.
Yeah. I would say Signetti and Prime, because he goes 10-0 for the first time in school history, not since 1930 the first time in school history. So I think it's really more of like it's relative to where you are, where your program. Dan Lannon, the number one. Oregon is pretty loaded, you know what I'm saying? Or Coach Prime goes from 4 wins to easily doubling it and is in contention for the Big 12 championship first year in the conference. And there's the improvement. And you and I know this, and a lot of people know this. It's tough for a big time former player that goes into coaching, because for some reason in people's minds they're supposed to pick up right where they left off performance
Correct.
wise
They're
as a
supposed to be
coach.
able to build a bunch of
Yeah,
games.
yeah, as a coach, and that's so unrealistic, and that's a lot of pitfalls that happens, unfortunately, to even like coaches that go back to their alma maters with great intentions. My times there was glory years, or I mean, at the high school level, the college level, pro, whatever, and
But
it
I don't
doesn't
know that
work out.
any great, and I don't even know that it's ever been a realistic expectation because I think there's only been one truly great player that, and one you probably would argue whether they're great or not, went on to be a great coach. And you're probably looking at, in basketball, you're probably looking at like Lenny Wilkins.
Oh yeah, well,
Um, you know,
basketball's a little
but even
different. Yeah,
still, but you look at Larry Bird, mediocre. Isaiah Thomas, mediocre.
yeah,
Magic Johnson, awful. Right? Like, and when you go to football, the guys that played football that end up being elite were mediocre. Bill Cowher, mediocre,
yeah,
player. Mike Tomlin, mediocre player.
yeah,
The guys that end up truly being elite coaches just very rarely are great players because great players tend to also not be able to have patience.
yeah.
Why can't you Why can't you run a 4.5, a 4.240 and with a 60-inch vertical? I did it.
Yeah,
Why can't
yeah.
you do it?
And the biggest thing goes to Michael Jordan. He was often asked, and he knew
He'd
already.
be a terrible
He
coach.
knew I would be.
He'd be a
Yeah,
terrible coach.
yeah, and
He was a
and
terrible teammate.
yeah,
Anybody that, and great players tend to be bad teammates as well.
yeah. Well,
That's why
everybody,
it's so
everybody saw the
exceptional
last
when they're not.
dance. Everybody saw the last dance, and I'm with Mike. You want to win. You want to bring everybody with you. If you he's in tears if you're not going to practice that way, and get the hell out. Like it, I mean, you're talking about the greatest basketball player to ever play. His influence and impact on basketball. I mean, that's all we rock is J's. Like Jordan, it wasn't because he was just this dude. Anyway, we were going off, but yeah. So yeah,
Well, since
so
you're not mad, I'll
yeah,
end on what I'm
yeah,
also glad about. I'm
yes.
glad that Oklahoma's a poor because they have to renew Brent Venables' contract. And it's really time for his ass to go, but they can't afford it. And because I do believe somebody like a Kurt Signetti at Oklahoma. Now, Kurt Signetti is a winner. Now,
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day, you are what your record says you are, and if you don't won everywhere you've been, you're a winner.
Yeah,
So him,
you're right. I'll dig. I'll dig. I'll segue it. I'm mad. My Kansas Jayhawks won this week, so I can't be mad. Cowboys lost. That's what I'm mad about. Okay, so I'm a child. I'm a born Texan, and Dallas Cowboys always been my team. Now there are levels. I'm not gonna go into deep detail. There are
mhm,
levels and types of Cowboy fans, and
mhm.
you're a Cowboy fan. I'm gonna ride with you, but there are some obnoxious, there are some ridiculous, there are some, and that's any
You
fan
as a
base.
blank person, not that, just so the board, just so that our audience knows, you is not me. I'm not.
Yeah. I'm not one of those. Yes, and but I fan base, but obviously for whatever reason, Dallas Cowboys is the most hated, fan base, whatever. So
Because
obviously we
they're the
saw the
worst people.
shellacking they, huh?
Because they're the worst people. Go
Yeah,
on.
well, it could be annoying. I wouldn't say worse people, maybe annoying. Even I get mad every time I see somebody say we're gonna win the Super Bowl this year. Stop. Anyway, so it's going down in flames, and Dak's out for the year. That happens in football, but we're just not playing. We didn't do nothing all season. All that stuff is coming back to haunt us now. So the most recent thing, Philadelphia put the boot to ass, and then you start seeing things like Jerry Jones has always been Jerry Jones, but it's right now to the point it's too much where he's not involved in the everyday preparation of getting ready for a game, so he shouldn't have nothing to say about the outcome, win or lose.
No,
And
I'm not
then,
gonna lie. I thought he was right.
well, yeah,
We
I
do
mean,
know where the damn sun is. How
you
y'all?
do, you
When
do,
I'm
but you
flipping a
don't.
coin, I know what.
Yes, but in the midst of a game, way routes are going, things going, you can't control that, and that just happens. That happens on the lowest levels. That happens,
No,
kids are
when you
stealing
flip
and
the coin, and
but I
I'm asking
understand
this
that.
serious. I'm
Yeah,
asking this seriously
yeah,
because we literally in talking to some of the Texas coaches who will know, I had asked questions about I forget what game. Sark typically doesn't take the ball first if
hmm
he has the choice, and it was a game, and I forget. Maybe it was Oklahoma State. I want to say 2 years ago. Texas took the ball And I remember asking some of the coaches afterwards, like, why'd you take the ball? That's not even. They're like, well, we knew the wind and we knew how the
Yeah.
wind was blowing, and we knew we wanted to be going the other way in the second half.
Yeah. There's strategy to that. Yes.
Right.
Yes. But
So
you
it's like
don't.
same thing. Like, don't you know if I
Yeah.
know the
Yeah. But
sun
you.
is going to be a damn distraction in the second half,
Yeah.
I want to be going the other way.
Yeah, but I say that yes, you're all right with that. The wind, the way wind blows, that's a factor. But like the way the time and the sunset and the pace of a game, that's just. I
You
mean,
know all that today,
but I
though.
mean, you're pros. That shouldn't have been such an issue. It should have been acknowledged. Like he couldn't see the sun. That's a play. It was a potential touchdown, but I just think.
I thought they said that. I thought they said it was a factor of the whole half, the whole second half almost.
Well, yeah, but it's like
Are
that
you
was just.
saying it was a lie? You saying it was a cop out?
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, in the sense of,
If that's your stance, I buy this now.
yeah, in the sense of that, what it is. But when I'm saying like one particular play where they could have scored and maybe swung some momentum, that yes, that is a factor. He said he put a visor on, it still didn't help. It is what it is. But that's your team. Don't go on and be like, oh, what you want to do? Tear the whole damn stadium down and build another one somewhere else? Like, dude, like he is losing his team. And I'm not a pro football NFL analyst. He's losing his team. And I love the Cowboys, but it's bad. So
You think
I'm
he
mad at
just
the.
now lost the team? I thought he lost the
Well,
team
I mean,
years ago.
it's very well, as a fan, a loyal fan, I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it. It's bad. I mean, it looks bad. I mean, depth at running back, depth at quarterback. We didn't even make an attempt. If
Oh,
he was,
losing his team in the sense
it's like
of
like
everybody's getting hurt. I thought you
yeah,
meant losing the team
no,
as in
both,
nobody's respected him.
both,
Okay.
because you I guess in NFL is dog eat dog is it's like okay, certain spots, and if I know it's like GM ain't making no moves. We good. But but they just start making moves because you want to make the team better. That's the essence of it. Competition breeds excellence. And you letting these guys just be comfortable because we don't need like I'm not gonna go into it. We need a new run anyway. I'm mad at the Dallas Cowboys. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. And we're gonna go. I'm gonna go first because I need something to change this. And you know what? Golly. And while I'm talking about excellence, I'm gonna first start talking about congratulations to Devin Neal becoming the all-time Kansas rushing leader and touchdown leader. Congrats to him. He 4 years. He's not one of these 10-year COVID kids that's using all. He's done it in the true 4 years. So much respect to that kid. Nothing but love, man. I mean, being a running back there, I mean, he did his thing, man. So congrats to that. I'll sidebar and also send a shout out to Coach Bill Self for being the all-time winningest Kansas basketball coach last night when they beat not no scrub team, they beat Michigan State, and there's only been 8 coaches in Kansas basketball history. So he passed up Fall Gallen, who the arena is named after. And it's funny enough that the person in last place, so number 8, is James Naismith, who invented basketball. So I mean, so it goes Bill Self, Fall Gallen, Roy Williams. I mean, golly, man, and Larry Brown's even on the list somewhere, at 5 or 6. So like, congrats to Coach. But yeah, so
He's
Iowa
been there
State,
18 years, though.
huh?
It's been there 18 years. You like, yeah, whatever. Go ahead. Sorry.
He had to throw a jab.
No, it's just like we're building him up like he's the second coming. Like he's been
What are
there.
you talking about?
He's been there 18 years. He ought to be the winningest coach in Kansas.
But Kansas is a basketball mecca, blue blood. Come on now, that they're winning no matter what, and he's doing it. He's number 1 all time. No,
and the only reason he's still there is because he couldn't go nowhere else for a while there. Let's not.
Where else would you want to go? Where would you want to go? You want to go to
Where they gonna
Texas?
pay me?
No, there you go. Anyway, so boom. So we had Iowa.
I'll leave Kansas, go to Kentucky. Hell yeah.
Whatever. So we had Iowa State this week at home. We had Iowa State at home. I'm not letting you pull me into that. We had the Black Hawk uniforms on, and obviously we were an underdog because we've had our struggles. We've talked about it. But I'm gonna tell you what, early in the game, Iowa State came out and they asserted their dominance. I mean, they got an empty and we just could not get to the quarterback. We couldn't stop them on a 3rd down. But I think the biggest thing out of it was that they didn't get a lot of points out of it, So I thought our guys bent, but bowed their neck and got some stops. But our offense came alive, and we talk about it. Now the final score was 45-36, and I mention that now because you and I always talk about with KU the difference between winning and losing is going to be turnovers, and we won the turnover battle. So it still holds true. Certain when you figure teams out, that's our deal. We win the turnover battle, we're gonna win the game. And I like our chances. Not to jump ahead, we've been going back and forth between the 2.5 point underdog and basically a 3 point underdog against BYU. But held Iowa State to under 100 yards a team rushing. Now they did throw for 383 yards. Rocco Beck, that kid, he's good, man. I like him a lot. But JD6, man, more and more looking like himself. Houston game, he showed, promise. And, Skinner had a game, man. I think Skinner, 4 catches, 135 yards, man. He made some plays. Big body, 6'5", go up and get it. So I'm just, I was pleased the way our offense played. Like I said, we didn't turn the ball over. Devin Neal was solid, had the brace on his shoulder. He injured it in the K-State game, but he seemed to be good to go. Didn't really matter. It wasn't a factor. Right here, this was the difference. And my boy Brandon McAnderson, I thought about him when I was watching this speed option. We were effective and we were successful running the speed option. And that's a big staple in our game. When we can't run speed option, we're not effective as an offense running the ball. You've got a mobile quarterback. You've got 2-3 running backs that can make things happen. And we looked a little more multiple. We looked a little more dynamic. And I thought, JD6, I talk about, I don't like running him a lot, but it was option. It wasn't that he had to run in lieu of Devin Neal not being able to carry the load. So, they knocked off Iowa State, man, knocked them down to, they're 17 at the time, but Iowa State was in the conversation for being Big 12 champs along with BYU. And I mean, not just within the conference, nationwide, people were starting to notice. I mean, you're a big Matt Campbell fan. I mean, just, they put it. I would be so mad to say if this is when Kansas finds their stride and they roll. Now, crazier things have happened. I know you like to give me a hard time, but not with the Jayhawks, whatever. Going into this week, they've got a tough BYU team, undefeated BYU team. They're 2.5, 3 point underdog. I don't know, man. They've got them in Provo, late night game. November? It's Kansas. Cold weather is not going to be a factor. They're used to that. That's nothing out of the ordinary. But it's hard to win at nighttime at BYU. I mean, they're traditionally successful in those situations, but
Mornings don't drink. So why is it so hard to play at night?
I don't know. It's just what does the drinking have to do with it?
Well, most of the time, that's why teams don't want to play late at night, because the fans have kind of partied all day and they're rowdier.
I mean, you're a Christian. I'm a Christian. You cuss still. I mean, you never know. I don't know. I mean, that don't mean perfect.
Lord knows I drink.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean perfect. So I'm pretty sure the crowd will be rowdy enough. Cosmo, which is probably one of the most popular mascots and probably the most athletic mascot. I mean, it's just the atmosphere and the element. It's just the way it is, man. So I mean, we'll see. I really like BYU's running back. I think he's been banged up. LJ Smith, I think that's his name. LJ Martin. Big physical kid that's been there since a true freshman. I mean, when I watched him play a year or two ago as a true freshman, I mean, he ran the ball like he had been there for like 10 years. And you make a joke about moments. He might have been 27 years old, but a true freshman. So, I mean, different things, but it's a unique situation that BYU.
I can't wait until that becomes a gripe, because it will.
Yeah.
BYU go undefeated and people are going to start saying it's not fair because everybody on the team.
Grown men with families.
Right.
And so I didn't know, and I'm ended off of this, I previewed the game, but when you're in a bad place, misery loves company. And I want everybody to lose. But I thought about it, man, and because the Utah played well enough against BYU to win the game. Now, I agree, and I'm an advocate for, like you said it before, officiating or a call shouldn't dictate the win or loss of a game, in a crucial situation. Like you could say, oh, we had 10 penalties overall, and I wanted Utah to win just because I wanted BYU to, get their first loss. But I thought about it. I said, okay, we're coming off.
You'd rather be the one to give it to them.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's what I was thinking. I was like, good. It worked out. So, we've had things set up, and I've heard before, and we didn't take advantage. But as long as we take care of the ball, I think we'll be all right. I expected, in my opinion, with us being, 3-6 and BYU being 9-0, I expected the spread to be a little bigger. I knew early when it was opened up at 2.5. I thought, oh, that's just early. It is what it is, but it's still. It was 3 yesterday. Now it went back to 2.5 today. So I mean, this semantic. That's
Well, at
nothing.
that point, it's set, and it'll just move
Yeah.
based on where folks are putting the money.
Yeah. Or if something happens, if somebody is not playing,
Correct.
you get that news night before or whatever. But I'm excited, man. And of course, I'm picking my Jayhawks to win 9:15 on ESPN. That's going to be a late night game. It's going to be after everything else is kind of settled. And that's gonna if KU wins that game, that's gonna turn some
ESPN, the
heads.
Ocho.
No, regular ESPN, punk. ESPN 1. But nah. So anyway, tell me about your game against the Sisters of the Poor that you had to play. That's a conference game.
Look,
FCC.
man, it is not my fault.
Hey, you know what?
Blue blood Florida, it didn't hold up.
I'll give you credit to do. I tell you what, you had it, and I was front and center watching it. I knew you was at the game, but I tell you what, like I was just disappointed, and I got tired of like watching the game because it was like, ugh, and it just. I don't know, man. It was so bad. And obviously you might not bring it up. I'm gonna jump to it. Sark ran one of the coolest ass plays I've seen this year, man, with the motion, orbit motion, and the fake stretch, the reverse again. And I say, oh yeah, everybody that coach is writing that down, But I mean,
the nuance in that is, and you look at it here. There were even a couple times early in the game where they're running that orbit motion and they go to the swing every time.
Yeah.
They go to the swing, and then one time they faked the reverse, but they still went to the swing. So kind of started to play with their eyes.
It was an organic progression to that scheme. Exactly. Very good. Very good. Yes.
No, you did what you're supposed to do. When you're an elite team playing against a bad team, you come out and you let them know this ain't that today. You put your foot on your neck from the jump. Well, because what I worry about from pretty much from here on out is you're going to be favored in every game you play. You're going to be the better team in every game you play from here on out until you get to Atlanta. So in the game, can you set the tone? Can you do these things early? Because I'm a big believer in. And this is any sport, anything. If you have one team that has severely overmatched the other team, the worst thing you can do is give that underdog a chance, the thought that they can compete.
Yeah.
Because then they start to overperform.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put pressure on yourself, and then you open the door for you to underperform. Mm-hmm. Right. So just the sports psychology of it. You want to put people down as early as you can and let them know that this ain't going to be that today. And Florida's undermanned. Florida had, I think on the depth chart, I think they had 8 people out. Maybe double digits, but I think it was 8. But let's be generous and say it was 10 because DJ Lagway is worth 4 or 5 people by himself. And he is. So, he wasn't going to be the difference in the win and the loss.
Yeah, not this year. Yeah.
But he's definitely the difference in does the blowout start in the second quarter or in the second half or not, right? It's probably not 35-0 going into half. But no, we did what we were supposed to do. Sark, 562 yards of total offense, 352 yards of pass. 352 yards of passing. We ended up with 210 rush, and we only had 56 going into the half, 67 going into the half.
Wow.
So we absolutely came out with the intent that we were going to pass to open up the run, because Florida had a lot of guys close to the line of scrimmage. They did a lot of stunting. They did a lot of the things that Texas has shown that they have struggled with in the past. So it was good to see, because the one area Florida was not banged up was along the defensive line. So I thought there was an opportunity that they would be able to challenge us there. So just in the play calling, I knew that Sark was confident. I knew that he believed when you go for 4th and 1 at your own 25, you like, I just have no faith.
I saw that.
It
was early too. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, in the stands, I say, I don't love that. I don't love that because you don't get it. Now, what did I just talk about? You're in a dogfight with a team you're not supposed to be in a dogfight when instead
there it is right there. I even marked it. Popular player of the week. Yeah,
and also play designs are cool and they're great, but how many people can run that play and have two
Yeah.
Sunday guys that are pulling from the
Yeah.
offensive line,
Exactly.
that are going around, that have a true Sunday guy that handing it off to another Sunday guy,
Exactly.
right? And
That's a combination of X's and O's and
it's
Jimmy and
Urban
Joe's.
Meyer. It
Yeah.
takes Urban Meyer to explain it, and he says, my best plays are the plays that involve all of my Sunday guys.
Yeah.
Right? When I can avoid the play involving, the guy whose career probably ends after 4 years in college, they tend to be more successful. So we, like I said, we had to do a couple concerns did come out of the game. Florida won the time of possession battle. They had the ball for 32 minutes.
Which I
They
was
rushed
scoring
for
so
200
fast
yards.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
And they rushed for 200 yards. And I didn't love that. They ran a lot of outside zone stuff. So kind of maybe exposed an area or two that Texas is going to have to tighten up. Because if you go into this weekend in Arkansas with a mobile quarterback, you go into the last game of the year in College Station with a mobile quarterback, you contain guys on the edge, it's going to be a long damn day.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to watch for that, and I'll see what we do on Saturday. But again, just talking about some of the same things, right? You're going to Fayetteville at 11 a.m. Love that it was at 11 a.m. and not 7 p.m. Same reasons we talked about. They hate Texas there. This is, in fact, there's a clip, if you don't see, and I talk about it all the time, and people, call it Texas elitism or whatever, but literally, Sam Pittman, they were like, what do you need to do? They asked Sam Pittman early in the year, might even been preseason. And they asked him, what do you need to do to keep your job? And he said, you just need to win. He said, and especially if we beat them Longhorns, that'll go a long way. This is at the beginning of the year, right? Mike Elko has already talked about beating Texas early on in the year, and that's the last game on their schedule. So you start to get into that part to where, guys are looking to save their year.
Yeah.
No matter how the year ends up, if they beat Texas, they will have done well.
I'm about to say, yeah. Well, like you said, you still got the Super Bowl element. You said we're still everybody's Super Bowl.
And I hate, that has been a surprise to me because
y'all were a good team coming into the SEC.
Well, and I think that helps. That helps too, right? That you're the Super Bowl, not necessarily. It used to just be because we were Texas.
Yeah.
Now it's not so much just because we're Texas. In Georgia's example, Georgia didn't care that we were Texas. Georgia cared that we were the number one team in the country and supposedly better than them.
Yeah.
So that elicited
another good program who had been there before, who has been in that. And then we talked about that similar situation of SEC battles when it's 1 versus 3, 1, 2 versus 4, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that was probably, I don't know, probably the only going into the game advantage Georgia had. They had been here before, even though Texas played in big games and they've been highly ranked. I just thought that was the edge. And
I thought their edge was that they got to be able to be the underdog.
Well, yeah, that too. But they had been here. They had been here before.
Kirby don't get that, but once a year.
I know, but that margin of underdog, you're talking like now Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, like whoever the underdog, the margin is so small, but you can use it. So, but go ahead, finish up with Arkansas. But yeah,
no, just look. I mean, like I said, same difference. You're gonna go in there, and it won't be as wide a spread. You're going to be on the road in a absolutely hostile environment. Can you weather it? Last time we went to Fayetteville 3 years ago now. It was Sark's 2 years ago. Sark's second year. Went to Fayetteville and we weren't good. And they out-physicaled us and they outmanned us in every way possible. So can you get your lick? Can you get your lick back?
Yeah.
We talked about it after the Florida game because so for those that may not know, the SEC has 5 tiebreakers. And I think the 4th tiebreaker is points for and against. The 5th tiebreaker, the last tiebreaker is a coin flip. So at this stage of the year, style points matter.
Everybody getting blown out.
So I talked to some of the people on the Texas staff, and they were like, because I've always said, and I'll tell them this, I've always said that the one thing that Texas has never had in a head coach is a Steve Spurrier, Bob Stoops type.
You got a nice guy.
You don't want me to score 70? You better stop me. Otherwise, I'm gonna go get 70.
Yeah.
And Mac was always, a student of the game and
Class and
class. You
mhm.
call it class, but
Well, I mean, just the way he handles it. I'm not saying Sark's not classy, but just
right.
Coach.
Well, Sark's the same way, right?
But Coach
Where
Brown's a little
I
older,
don't
and
know that it's class as much as it's I'm nice and I want to be well regarded. When I think there's two ways to get to the well regarded status.
yeah.
You well regard because I don't know that Kirby. I don't know that I've ever looked at Kirby and been like, they really pulled up
Well,
that game.
I don't. You're right, and I think there's a couple of things I can say about that. I think it's the coach within, little man syndrome, insecurities, confidence. Or I will go back way back to when you were in high school when I first started coaching. One of my mentors, Coach Walden, I remember we were playing a team on the east side of Austin that no longer exists. And I mean, we could do anything. We were blowing them out. I know this is high school, but I think it applies. And he said, okay, stop calling all these plays, just run some base stuff. He said, let me tell you something. That was my first year coaching. He said, let me tell you something. He said, it feels good now, but that can come back to bite you in a sense of like, yeah, you
Well, in
prepare
high
your
school,
kids.
because you don't necessarily get
Well,
to control the kids. You
but
don't
but
control what you
but
get.
I think probably up until like the NFL, but I think there's still some of that in college because if there's a high level of respect between coaches, you could tell when they're not necessarily pulling up, but they're just running to get out the game, opposed to when coaches don't like each other and doing doing wild. So we call him timeout. He's still throwing the ball, and it's 56-7. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think as a coach, sometimes it's that element of karma or the element of like, oh, that could come back. I know I had the game won. That's what the goal was, but yet and still, I decided to do a little extra that could come back on you. I mean, coaches talk is it's a bunch of things that could play into it. Now, in this era of like say style points, margin of wins, everybody's got to understand. I'm trying to get my team ranked. I'm trying to get my team into this playoff, So I don't know, there's so many elements to it, but yeah, but I mean, well, we'll look forward to it. You'll be done early, so you'll be sitting back, you'll be relaxing, and I'll have to.
Only if we win.
I have to wait. I might just sleep half Saturday just until that game comes on. But we're gonna move on to the we didn't pick, obviously. That's crazy that both our teams were open, so schedule records remain the same. We didn't. I'm still sucking it up, barely holding on to a winning record. So going into this week, obviously, I don't care who it is. I'm going to ride for my Jayhawks. I mean, they're capable. You still don't know who they are. You alluded to a joke about, the real Slim Shady, please stand up. Like, I don't know who they are. It's almost to the point you don't know who's going to show up, but I am optimistic that I know we're capable. So you never know. Man, yeah, Houston, Georgia game. I'm going to ride with Houston. It is what it is. Colorado, I already told you I'm not going against Coach Prime. Baylor, like I said, I think they're finding their legs. I do not like West Virginia anyway, so I'm picking Baylor. I think Baylor's a better team if they can corral that scrambling quarterback, because I think he doesn't have a plan. He's just savvy, just running around till somebody gets open. I don't think that's anyway. I'm not going to. I'm picking Baylor. Yeah, K-State or Arizona State anyway. Iowa State looked at them to bounce back. I just hadn't seen Cincinnati show much of life in any, just they're a decent team. They could possibly still go to a bowl. They get one more win, but it is what it is. I guess TCU's open. Well, yeah, the game I'll be looking at is going to be Tennessee, Georgia. Big implications. We've talked about it enough. We talked about the projections. We talked about the rankings. I think this is going to be the most watched game, at least in SEC country, because it's going to have, some implications on, who goes what. People are going to keep crying about Georgia. Georgia cannot afford to lose this game and still be in the conversation. That's what we talked about earlier. Georgia cannot.
Neither team can lose this game and still be in the conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Tennessee's got one loss. Is that I'm asking? Georgia's got two, but I think Tennessee's got one. Yeah. So, and Texas high school football playoffs start this week. Y'all see, I'm repping my old high school. Gonna stand up for them boys. Nah, Killeen Ellison Eagles. I hate saying Killeen Ellison, but Ellison Eagles are in the playoffs for the first time in about 10 years. So, I'm happy. Congrats to that staff. They'll play Iowa Colony. That's a 5A school in the Houston area, maybe south of Houston. About high school playoffs are almost adopting the same thing. And it could have been last year. I hadn't really kept up with it, but first round games are now at home stadiums on the higher ranked team. So they got to go 2.5, 3 hours to Iowa Colony and play them. I think it's Friday. There's another area high school, Shoemakers, playing DeSoto tomorrow at DeSoto. Harker Heights plays Lancaster, I think, at Lancaster, if I'm not mistaken, on Friday as well. So good luck to those teams. The head coach at Harker Heights is a childhood friend of mine. So I'm excited for all my Killeen area teams, man. Let's go get it. I have this medal back here. This is the medal when we were in the playoffs back when we were at Ellison. We were in the state semifinals, one game away from state and got hammered, but we got a nice little bronze medal. So good luck to all those teams. So tell me about your picks this week, your predictions, if you will.
I'm not even going to pretend as if these were tough choices. Right? This week sucks. I think across the sport, and that'll happen, right? But because we've had some really good.
Who is? You know what? You know who needs a raise? Whoever's in charge of scheduling in the SEC. Boy, y'all passing it around. Y'all are passing it around.
When this was, again, knowing the schedules are made 3 to 5, depending on the school, but 3 to 5 years in advance. When this schedule was made, the 12-team playoff decision hadn't even been made yet, right? Mm-hmm. So you can afford multiple losses in a year. So in your open weeks, you're just scheduling not to lose. Candidly,
but you're right because the consequence was so high. Yes,
the consequence was the price was so high, and every school. And this is not a self-aggrandizing pat on the back, because it hasn't always helped us. But not every school cares about the brand like a Texas does, because we talked about it when, in the context of the bottle throwing and stuff. I said, the penalty is going to be severe because Texas cares about the brand. It's like the NFL. You protect the shield always.
Yeah.
So same thing applies to Texas when it comes to scheduling. Texas has never scheduled an FCS school. Period. Full stop. So when on our open weeks, we schedule now, granted, UTEP ain't. What's the difference between UTEP and South Dakota State? Not a big one.
Yeah.
Not a big one.
They do it right. They do it right.
Right. Not a big one.
So you can say exactly what you just said, and other teams cannot.
We don't have to schedule cupcakes. You do.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying you can say that, and it's semantics, but you're exactly right. Technically, yeah, you're right.
So obviously, I'm picking Texas over Arkansas. I'll know. Sometimes teams are just so easy to read. And this team is so transparent. I will know within the first 3 drives, both ways, what kind of day it'll be. I'll know, is it going to be a day that we're just going to handle business and do what we're supposed to do? I'll know, is it a day that we're going to be in a dogfight that we'll probably win? Or I'll know, damn it, this is going to be a long one, and I don't know how it's going to end.
14-point favorite. 14-point favorite.
Mm-hmm. I need to look at, how do we handle Green? Do we let him get out on the edge? Do we give him easy reads?
Y'all got the team speed for it.
Sam Pittman said something really interesting in his press conference this week that made me go back to look. And he said, Texas doesn't really do anything exotic. They don't have to do anything crazy. He said they just gonna line up in their base stuff and they're gonna whip you. And I kind of looked and I went back and I always rewatch the game, especially if I went, because the feel on TV is always often very different than the feel on in person. So I went back and watched the Florida game, and we really didn't. We didn't really do anything special. Even our blitzes, we would send a corner or safety blitz, and it was very obvious.
I turned it off because it
was very obvious what was coming.
They couldn't stop anything y'all were doing. Like it was. Well,
bad. I mainly was watching on defense based on what Sam Pittman had said, because I was like, well, let me go see, because we had played really well against Florida, but it was very much base stuff. You saw the blitzes coming, but again, you were playing a redshirt freshman quarterback who had played at, what did he play, Yale last year, right? So, you get away with a lot of those things. But even Beck, I can't bring myself to go rewatch the Georgia game, but I just remember us generating a lot of pressure on Beck. I know we got a lot of turnovers off of Beck. So some teams are good enough to where you don't have to do anything special. Stick to your fundamentals and play your game, and the game's going to shake how it's supposed to shake. I'm excited because Arkansas is like 124 in total defensive efficiency. So
but and I look at this, I'm looking at this, but then I look at the offense, and you timed it just
same thing.
right.
They're like top 6. They're like
Yeah,
number 6.
that's
Yep.
crazy. Like Quinn has thrown for 1,700, and Green has thrown for 2,200.
Yeah.
I mean,
more games, number one, but
but I mean that's a big. I mean that's
but Bobby
500,
Petrino is also gonna. Bobby Petrino is less balanced.
Yeah,
Green is chunking that thing.
Yeah, top rusher, 592 yards to y'all 409-yard rusher, and receiver.
We're probably also a little more balanced.
More distribution among.
But that's what I say. In the first 3 possessions, I will know how have we defended them.
Yeah.
And if we get 3 consecutive stops and we go score 2 out of those 3 times,
got them figured out.
I'm gonna feel good about how, because I know how we'll react.
Yeah.
But Auburn will sleepwalk over UL Monroe. You've got Kentucky over Murray State. I have no knowledge of Mercer whatsoever.
I know the fact that they're 9-1 makes you like, what?
But 9-1, you only just put your little antenna up and say, I'm gonna check in on that score because they know how to win. Now, granted, against inferior talent,
Presbyterian, Bethune-Cookman, Chattanooga, the Citadel, Wofford, Princeton, Sanford, Western Carolina, East Texas State, and Virginia Military Institute.
I couldn't tell you where none of those are. All right. Alabama by 40.
Oh man!
But no, if Alabama plays how they played in Death Valley, again, I would pick them over anybody not wearing burnt orange. Honestly, I was talking to shout out to Sam. I was talking to my boy Sam, who's a big, really plugged in with the Alabama program, and I was talking to him before the game. Now Sam does this thing, and he's superstitious, like I'm superstitious. We used to be coworkers. Sam does this thing. He'll pour a shot of vodka, about yay big, before every game, and doesn't matter where he's at, tailgate, out of town, wherever. He'll pour a big shot of vodka before every game, take it, send it to the group chat, so everybody knows that they're ready. And of course, he didn't do it against the Georgia game, so then he was all superstitious. And I texted him before, because it was beneficial to Texas that LSU loses, because Texas doesn't get to play LSU, and LSU doesn't play Georgia. So I needed LSU to lose. I said, hey, man, take 2 shots. Do whatever you need to do. He's like, man, we're not going to. He's like, man, I don't think we're going to win. I was like, I don't know. I think y'all are. And he goes, I don't have any faith because I just don't know that we're any good. And we joked about it. And of course, I texted him throughout the game. And I was like, man, you just need to listen to me.
I tell you what.
Because I told him the same thing. He didn't think they'd beat Georgia.
But I tell you, we talked about it, like it's hard to win in Death Valley at night. We talked about those elements. But when the game started,
again, you just kind of know, right?
Yeah.
LSU over Florida, I was iffy on that because I do think Florida does some things really well. Their secondary, though, is just decimated. So I think LSU is going to have a field day. I don't know. It all depends. In the SEC, we don't talk about it that much, but the home team's winning percentage is like 80-something%. It's hard to win on the road in the SEC. So depending on how closely matched the teams are, LSU already has to be 10 points better than LSU for the home crowd not to factor in. And I think they're right at 10. That's why I was kind of like, I don't know if the kids show up. And, like I said, they did some good things in the second half against us. Can they run the ball against LSU? If they can run the ball against LSU, that's
quarterback play. And quarterback play is
quarterback play. Can he not? Will he not turn it over? I think we got 3 or 4 turnovers.
They're only a 4-point favorite.
Right. That's what I said. So I think it'll be more competitive than people think. But I got LSU and Nussmeier. I got South. I'm a big Shane Beamer guy. I got South Carolina over Missouri.
Perfect pick.
I don't think it'll be particularly close either.
Especially
I've
where
got
Missouri won
Georgia.
last week
I've
against
got Georgia
Oklahoma.
over
Ugh.
Tennessee. Also, not sure that it'll be particularly close. Nico, I'm gonna leave it to you. Is on the injury report. He's probable, but still means he's banged up. So Georgia's going to get after him. They're going to put him on the ground. And how does that affect him?
The boys are physical too. Oof.
They're very physical. Their secondary is incredible. They'll get some turnovers. I'm confident in that. But Tennessee's defense is really good. Tennessee, I believe, also will get some turnovers. I think you can see both teams with probably 2 turnovers. And I think Tennessee's going to take away the run. So it all comes down to which Carson Beck shows up. Is it the Carson Beck from the second half against Alabama, or is it
who got caught laughing and joking when they were down by like however on the sideline? In context, but he has a permanent smile. But anyway, go ahead.
So if he shows up and he's the Carson Beck of old, the good one, I think they'll get out of there with it at home. Obviously, I think Texas A&M will steamroll New Mexico State. Hope they wouldn't, but it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. You had to pick with your head, not your heart. And you say you like I said, you said it's crappy games. The only game you really worry about is that 11:00 kickoff in Fayetteville. So
my day's gonna be real good or real bad. That's the only good. That's the only thing about 11 a.m. kicks is what kind of day you're gonna have from.
I was about to say it can make it a great one. Or it could.
When we get a blowout win, there's nothing back. Nothing can ruin my day.
Well,
we get a close win. It's kind of iffy.
You'll get over it though. A win's a win.
Make my day better.
Well, yeah, I'm excited. Look forward to it, man. Another great show, man. It's picking up. I mean, the holidays, these winter holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas are my favorite holidays because that speaks to
sports
late season. Day. Yes, I mean, conference games, bowl season, playoff. Even NFL, like just those those football weather games, man, and football every day. I think there were 3 Maction games on tonight, and just continues. If people laugh at the Mac, I just love watching ball, man. So, but I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in, showing support, man. I actually talked to some people a couple of days ago, asked me about the podcast and told them, we took an open week. So, some of y'all are watching. I appreciate that. We just give them what we got. That's all, So we appreciate y'all, man. We see y'all next time. As always, rock chalk.
Praise the Lord and hook 'em horns.
See y'all.
Hey, see y'all from Texas.